Formula V's are on track. Steve De Vries front and centre with this national series, mate. This is over many, many years. We've seen many drivers take on this series, haven't we?
Yeah, we certainly have. And I'll tell you what, there's some quick ones that have come to play this weekend. They've split the wins between them. In Michael Kinsella and Simon Pace, the two New South Welshmen, have taken the two victories so far. Daniel Reynolds would have fancied himself a chance to take a couple of them, but he's been beset by some dramas in race one and didn't quite get enough green flag running in the tricky conditions this morning in race two to really launch himself up the field from the back of the grid, but he's going to be starting out of position number 9, so hopefully he can make some great progress from there as the full field of 25 cars is now out on the circuit. One of those didn't take part in race 2 this morning. That was Corey Horter, who just went through your picture there. Some gearbox and clutch dramas limiting him to, actually really consigning him to the garage for race number 2 this morning. So having a look at the grid, it's Simon Pace who's going to be off of pole position with Brock Hamilton with that sensational last move on Ash Quiddington at the last couple of corners in the closing stages, quite literally the closing stages of the race this morning. It was the final lap, final 2 corners. Quiddington will start third ahead of Blake Purvis, who was one of several drivers that had a moment and charged through the field to recover to position number 4 ahead of Ash Clifford. Jason Kay starting out at P6. He's actually been the quiet achiever this weekend. He's finished first in 10th place in the race on Saturday afternoon. He then went on to finish 6th this morning, so he's gone about his business very, very quietly and starting alongside there with Ash Clifford. Michael Kinsella, he had it coming together with Clifford this morning, so he's starting out at P7 and ahead of Nathan Jones out of the Factory Sabre Racing stable in 8th. Daniel Reynolds, the man from the ACT there in 9th, so he'll be looking to make some early progress here ahead of Andre Curran, another one of those drivers that succumbed to the conditions this morning, ahead of Cameron Bell and Grant Kelly. Matt Harriott from Queensland out of 13th, David Temmie out of 14th, Declan Collison 15th, and Charlie Richardson, she would have been hoping for a little bit more wet weather than what has come down over the course of the day so far. She's starting in 16th. And then the last of the runners we have over the page, Mick Fisher out of 17 with Darren Power alongside him. Matt Ganji, the sole 1200 class car this weekend in position 19 ahead of Ken Morrison. Mitch Quiddington, who was beached in race 2. Malachi Windsor, who had a couple of spins and de fact did a 1080. Ivan Vitti out of 23rd. He stalled, had to be towed off the grid. And Alex Bezic, we saw him go flying off at turn 1 with no brakes. Corey Horter off the rear with that gearbox and clutch drama we mentioned earlier.
So, final race for the Formula V's here, a 20-minute affair. We've got a green flag at the back of the shot. Just waiting for that to appear, actually. And we've got car 50 and car 11 on the front row. Simon Pace from New South Wales and Brock Hamilton, and we are underway for the final race of the weekend. A good start there back in the pack for car 78 at Daniel Reynolds. He's on the charge forward, but it's Blake Purvis who's slotted into P2. Simon Pace back to third position there, and one of the Factory Sabre cars into 4th.
Yeah, great start there from Brock Hamilton on position number 2. Got away very cleanly, Pace slow away. Likewise, Purvis on the second row of the grid launched himself up the order quite well. Daniel Reynolds has already made 1 or 2 spots there by the look of it. He's ahead of Andre Curran. Himself has made a spot by the look of it. They've both gone in front of the 35 of Michael Kinsella. So second slow getaway today for the defending 5-time National Challenge champion Kinsella. He's been relegated in the early going here on lap 1. Have a look at that rear end of the Jason Kay, number 81. He's going to push hard on the outside here, and Reynolds, I think, just by moving over there, might have opened the door a little bit, but he hasn't opened it enough for Curran to stick his nose down the inside at 9. Well, not just yet anyway.
So good move from Daniel Reynolds there. He sets his sight after the top 4 here. Andre Curran just holding back a little bit there from Jason Kay, who's been improving all weekend long there. He started 15th in the first race, I think got to 9th, and then started 6th for this afternoon's feature race. Here comes Andre Curran down the outside of car 81, Jason Kay. They both had their own moments, I believe. Kay's off the road. Curran's done a 720 or something like that, and he's gone off the road too.
That'll be those painted white lines on the outside of the course. And there's Jason Kay, you mentioned. We've been saying he was doing so well. Now, he's going to struggle to get on here because he's got to get over the pit entrance road to get back onto the main circuit. There he goes. So he's dumped a bunch of spots. Likewise, Curran, I reckon he got the outside painted white line on the approach to turn number 11. Tried to open up the corner a little bit too much and paid the ultimate penalty.
Here's Grant Kelly on shot for car 17 there of Ash Clifford. He's being hounded by the 4 there of Cameron Bell, and these guys are going to range up onto the back of a few cars here. And a gaggle, a bit of a lock up there from one of the cars, car 19. He had an off in the race earlier on. That's Quiddington. That's the second of the Quiddington boys there. That's Mitch. So he went off in turn 3 in this morning's race. He's recovering Andre Curran, the reigning Victorian State Race Formula V Championship, and we've got a red flag we're just hearing in the back. So this is the moment between Curran and Jason Kay. Kay gets the fronts all locked up, and Curran gets the rears all locked up in sympathy and goes for a spin.
It's a bit hard to tell from that angle too about the margins that where they were playing with there. It looked like they were both very close to each other on the outside of the circuit. And I think Curran, as I said, got that painted white line, and he was trying to go into an outbraking duel with Kay heading down into turn number 11, and they both paid the price for it. Whoops, and who's that that's off? That is the number 31. That's the Declan Collison Sabre 02B, and that's come to a halt. You can see there FP 4.7, so that's flag point 4.7, so that's between turns 4 and 5, heading up to the turn 5 sweeper. Yep, that's how you work that out. It actually looked like part of the suspension might have been a bit damaged on that car too, so I'm wondering if he's had an off and maybe he's come back. You know, on some of the backsides of some of these curves, it's a very sharp drop off, so if he's gone a bit too wide, maybe he's given that suspension a bit of a jarring.
The right rear had a little bit too much toe out for your liking. Typically you'd run a Formula car with a little bit of toe in on the rear. There's another car off there. Couldn't quite see who that was.
I'm wondering if it's Blake Purvis because he's just gone down the order. No, it's not. So it was a dark coloured nose. I thought it might have been Purvis because he did move down the order, but we can now see who it is that's actually coming back onto the circuit here.
Sabre car factory?
Possibly. It might be the other of the factory Sabre cars, which is Nathan Jones, if that's the case. Here comes Alex Bezic. It was, in fact, Jones. He's gotten down the inside there of Richardson, having making his way through the back of the field. The SBS Sheds entry there picks up another spot, so that moves him up to position 16.
Malachi Windsor inside the top 10. What a good drive from him so far. Started 22nd in the final race here, and he's clawing his way back through the field. Something we've seen all weekend long with a few drivers typically that run at the front. They've had dramas and they've had to work hard for it this weekend.
Well, we don't want to put the curse on them just yet, but yes, some of these front runners that are now finding themselves mired in the mid-pack, they've got some trouble that they've got to get here to, and you can see some more trouble there for Kinsella. So Sunday hasn't gone well for him. He's now dropped in behind Ash Clifford, so that's an excursion on the exit of turn number 5. There's a pass behind him happening now. I think Grant Kelly and the number 19 of Mitch Quiddington, I think, was that one there? No, that was...
a bit of damage.
Yeah, a bit of damage on the front nose cone. That's not in front of the number 12 of Ash Quiddington too, so he might have gotten close to someone's rear gearbox there.
I think there was a spinner at the bottom of the shot there. One of the cars behind this gaggle of cars here involving Jason Kay, Cameron Bell.
Yeah, I can see there was a yellow flag potentially being waved at the top of the course just as we went out of shot there. Malachi Windsor is right all over the back of Kinsella here. I was talking to him on Friday, and Michael said to me he feels that Winton's one of the more difficult tracks to get acclimatised to. He feels like he can go to Sydney Motorsport Park or One Raceway or Phillip Island or any of those circuits, and you can acclimatise yourself fairly quickly. Talked about Winton being one of those ones where it takes quite a long time to get into the groove, particularly because every corner is very, very different in radius, in how much speed you can carry, and the line you need to take. You've got to retrain your brain to relearn the whole entire circuit. It's not easy, and doubly so when the conditions are like this.
It's a very technical circuit, whereas the likes of, say, Phillip Island and Sandown, they're nice and flowing. There's a lot of stopping and starting at Winton Motor Raceway, a lot of different lines to be had, especially in wet weather conditions like we're seeing here. You've got to avoid the river and the pool of water on the entry and the exit of turn number 4 and 3 respectively. And there's a lot of standing water that always appears on the apexes, especially around turns 7, 9, 10. Just anywhere really on this circuit, and you do not want to run wide because there is water everywhere.
Michael's fighting it here.
He's having a big drama, Kinsella.
Yeah, you can just see him working really, really hard at the wheel. There's lots of oversteer moments and corrective moments going on there.
No.
Oh, and Alex Bezic, no, he's found the gravel trap. And just trying to work out where that is from. The
Turn
shot
3.
He's beached. Yeah, he's at turn 3. He's gone in there backwards too, so he's dropped it on the way in there. Hasn't been the greatest weekend. Oh, it's a bit of a slide moment there. Has not been the greatest weekend for the Queenslander, the local championship points leader up there. And the safety car has now been called for the stricken number 26.
So we've seen the recovery crew today. They've had to perform a number of recoveries, but they've been able to do it incredibly rapidly. So we've got just under 7 minutes left on the clock. So expect to get car 26 out of the gravel. His weekend just goes from bad to worse at this point. He was involved in that incident down at turn number 11 earlier on in the weekend when he came together with the recovering Daniel Reynolds, by the way, who's up to 3rd position here.
Yeah, he's made some good pace with that one. Now, I can tell you now, this is not what Brock Hamilton would have wanted to see. He had a margin out to 5 seconds.
He was cruising.
He was very comfortable out in front, had the whole shot, and had launched away. That gap has now been completely erased. And on top of that, he's now got 2 checkmates in Simon Pace in the 50 and Daniel Reynolds in the 78. They are going to be right on his hammer at the restart here.
So field filing through turns 1 and 2 under safety car conditions. Having a look there at Cameron Bell, and then car 15, a very competitive and quick car in this category over the years. Sorry, car 16 there of Harriet.
Yep, that's as you said, the ex-Lee Partridge car. He's been coming to terms with that car as well. He's campaigned the Polar for a number of years and sold that car on. And he said this car is very, very tail happy. You know, the way that the Sabre is when it's set up, it's a completely different car to get used to compared to what he's normally run over many, many seasons. And this has been the first weekend he's really had a chance to really understand what the car can do, and he's had some mixed conditions to do it in. Usually when you're trying to learn a new car, you like some nice consistent conditions across the weekend, so you've got an accurate measuring stick to compare to race on race. That's been a very difficult initiation for him there. So Bezic finding reverse gear there. Oh, look at all the gunk that little under tray on the front of the Jason there's coughed up as he's getting going again here. So he's now a lap down.
I was going to say, unfortunately for him, his charge through the field won't happen because he's a lap down, unless there are any other cars there that have toured the pit lane and gone a lap down themselves. So unfortunately for him, he'll be stuck down around position 22. And it'll be Brock Hamilton that sets the pace for the restart. Hopefully this time by pacing car 50 all the way from New South Wales, and then Daniel Reynolds, Purvis and Clifford, those top 5 guys, including Kinsella in 6th. You could add pretty much the whole top 10 into that. They're all gun drivers in gun cars, and they'll be pretty rapid at this restart. So lights out on the race industry safety car. Brock Hamilton controls the field all the way down to turn 11.
This is a man at the head of this field who'll be feeling a little bit nervous right now because he has come so close to getting a win in Formula V for the last couple of seasons. He's dying to take that step that Andre Curran took a few years to do and finally notch his first win. This would be a mighty impressive stage to do it on if he can hold off these hard-charging New South Welshmen and men from the ACT over the next 3 3/4 minutes. This will be a big fight to the end. He had a big margin in hand before the safety car came out. Can he re-establish it? We're back to racing.
Good restart from Hamilton. He opens up a couple of car links here, and it invites Pace and Reynolds to have their own dice into turn 1 with Blake Purvis looking there in the Joust Racewear number 6. They all pull it up into turn 1, the top 10 getting through nice and cleanly. A little bit of a wide moment from Hamilton, but he doesn't have to cover just yet. These guys are a little ways back into turn 3.
I think it actually worked to his advantage there. Slight little movement at turn number 2, being on the outside line there, and almost like that karting line, he found a little bit of traction. He's now out to around about a half a second margin, but you're right, he's trying to invite Reynolds to have a go at pace, and with Purvis closing in on the pair of them, he also might be a bit of a factor, not just for the podium positions in this race. He could actually be the one that might even save Hamilton's bacon if he's definitely got some pace this weekend. He's had some moments, he's been able to recover, he's been able to tear through the field, and he'll be the one, I think, that could spoil the party of the two checkmates if he can get a wriggle on.
Kinsella under siege here from car 88 of Malachi Windsor, who shows the nose late into turn number 7 there. He's also got to be careful of the car behind him, car 12 there, one of the Quiddington boys.
Yep, that's the Ash Quiddington car there in the number 12, leading his namesake in Mitch Quiddington, who's ahead of Kieran here. Now, Kieran was in front of the two of them for a little bit and then has now dropped back behind them. And, of course, we keep referring to the local Victorian Trophy Tour Championship, which is very tight between the number 12 and the number 1. And every point counts at the moment, so it's not gone Quiddington's way in terms of being up in the top 3 or 4 positions. But importantly, he's always managing to stay one step ahead of Andre Kieran at the moment. So he keeps continuing to just pull a couple of points here and there and just keep extending that margin in the championship, which has still got a couple of rounds to go. But importantly, he's the one leading in that championship.
So Hamilton over the line, opening up the margin there over Simon Pace. Here comes the Joust Racewear Machine Car 6 of young Blake Purvis down the inside of
move.
Daniel Reynolds. A very good move into turn 1. He's got to cover up the hill on the run into turn 3. He's left himself a little bit vulnerable here. There was a slight overlap momentarily, but it seems to me that Blake Purvis has got that job done for P3, or has he? He gets a little bit deep on the rear brakes there and invites Reynolds for another go, and just up the road, that battle for the lead is closing in massively.
Yeah, I think Pace had a very good run out of turn 1 and 2, and he closed that margin down to Hamilton very, very quickly. Now, with that little moment for Blake Purvis, just put that in the back of your mind and focus in on trying to hone on these two that are heading up towards turn 6 and now on to turn number 7. About a second margin between second and third. It's not insurmountable. This might be the second last tour. We'll wait and see what happens when we go around and cross the start-finish line this time around. But Brock Hamilton, he hasn't jumped away like he did at the beginning of the race. He's just managing to hold pace at bay here. Back in the pack, here's Kinsella, still under assault from Ash Quiddington and Mitch Quiddington. Looks like Malachi Windsor has moved up there a position as well. You can see there, the number 1 of Kieran has actually dropped a further 2 spots. He's dropped 1 to the number 30 there of Nathan Jones and another to Jason Kay in the number 81 out of the Acura Motorsport stable. So this has not been a good race and a good weekend for Andre Kieran. This is very Andre Kieran-like.
I was just about to say very uncharacteristic of Andre to be falling outside the top 10. He's been the class of the field in the Victorian Championship now for a couple of seasons as his battle rages on through turn 11 and 12. The Quiddington boys carving through here, leaving Kinsella to fight out with the car behind him, I believe, of Malachi Windsor there. So across the line, it's a 6/10 margin.
And this is the last lap. We have just saw on the timing, just as behind the timing screen, there was the last lap board being held out. So it's 10 corners to go for Brock Hamilton. I think it's now going to be a race in 2. Purvis has managed to gap the number 78 here of Daniel Reynolds. So as long as he keeps it on the island, he's going to be looking at a position number 3 for the race, which is absolutely fantastic. Our focus is really going to be on can Hamilton hold off the advances of the much more storied and the much more, I guess you can call it, seasoned veteran in Simon Pace. Up to the top of the circuit, running a little bit wide, just looking for a little bit of grit anywhere you can find it. Hamilton using all the extremities of the circuit here as he continues to hold off the advances of the Pace Drilling number 50.
Simon's definitely close enough here to get in the mind of Brock Hamilton. After this, he's got 3 more corners, 3 more braking zones to execute and traction zones to execute. He's got that margin at around about half a second into turn number 10 for the final time and onto the back straight.
Down towards turn number 11. I can tell you now, Mark Mitchell and Brett Burden in the Silver Fox Racing stable, they'll be sitting there and they'll be waiting with bated breath, because this has been a long time coming for this team. It's been around for a couple of seasons now, and they've had a few drivers in the cars, and this young charge is finally going to reward them with a great victory, and his first in Formula V, and what a stage to do it on. The first round of the Formula V Australian Series, and he takes his first ever victory in Formula V. Well done, Brock Hamilton. A half a second margin to Simon Pace, and then third goes to the charging Blake Purvis.
Mighty happy Brock Hamilton there, coming across the line, setting the fastest lap, quickly eclipsed by Pace on the final lap there, punching the air as he came across. The rest of the cars streaming through there, Jason Kay and Andre Curran. Andre actually fell back to position number 12, so yeah, a very unfortunate weekend for him. There goes Grant Kelly, Cameron Bell coming across the line, and then we go back to car 16 there of Michael Harriott. Charlie Richardson coming home just behind him. Darren Power circulating across the line there, and I believe that was Beswick in position 22, albeit a lap down.
Yeah, so he would have been hoping for a lot better this weekend, Alex Beswick, but it's a learning experience for him. So Brock Hamilton, the victor, by half a second ahead of Simon Pace, and Blake Purvis just couldn't pick his pace up enough to really challenge Simon for second place, but great third place result for him. Daniel Reynolds and Ash Clifford fourth and fifth. Then the Quiddingtons, Ashley and Mitch. Michael Kinsella had a bit of a torrid race there and finished in 8th ahead of Nathan Jones and Malachi Windsor. Now, just looking at the Australian Series points as we go over the page, and you can see Jason Kay and Andre Curran there in 11th and 12th. The way that the points are structured, it looks like it will be a victory for the round to Simon Pace with 520 points, and then ahead of him, or behind him, it's Brock Hamilton, who that victory actually has elevated him to second, and a tie on points between Kinsella and Clifford, which I think will actually go in favour of Kinsella due to the victory he had on Saturday, which is great to see. In terms of the round overall for the Victorian Trophy Tour, that goes to Simon Pace ahead of Hamilton and Clifford. So a little bit of a different series setting of points, but that's what happens when you combine two different championships together. So great to see some great racing throughout the weekend, and great to have a first-time winner to round it all off.
And a huge field to top it off. We had just over 20 or 25 cars. It's great to see a healthy Formula V field, and all across Australia we've got categories running in WA, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland. It's in a really healthy spot at the moment.
It certainly is, and there's I think there's another round coming up next week somewhere in the country. I'm not sure where it is, but I will soon find that one out. But for Formula V, we will wait to see them again at the next round at Sandown for the Victorian Formula V Championship and the Victorian Trophy Tour. And for the Australian Series, you've only got to wait a couple more weeks. If you're interested, head over to Sydney Motorsport Park, May 30th and 31st. It'll be around there, the second round of the Australian Series.